So what we really need to balance all this out is this. We need this ghost image to be filled, right? But we've got to start. Now, what about those CPEs? Cisco and D-Link, part of the World IPv6 launch again, have committed very publicly. In fact, John Chambers has a quote on this. So at Cisco, we've got some pretty busy people making sure this happens. That on the retail CPE platforms that we sell, Cisco and D-Link together make up 29% of the market worldwide. And we've both committed and already started in a number of our products for effectively our entire product line, okay, with exceptions here and there of, this country has some regulatory thing where we can't update the software or whatever. But the main point is the main product line from the small $50 box to the $150 box with IPv6 enabled by default, okay? It doesn't count if you've got to go in there and twiddle a bit, right? By default, as long as the ISP is offering that service, right? So this is going to make a big dent. Now, it's going to take time to churn those boxes, of course, right? But this is making a big dent. What moves actually faster is another category in the home router, which is tied directly to your ISP, right? This is the ISP managed router, the free box, the live box, the Alti box, the FooBar box. All you guys in Europe know about the boxes, right? The boxes don't come from the store. They're really, well, they might come from the store, but they're tied to the ISP, right? There's the guy who writes the code right there. Everybody meet Wouter. He writes your code on your live box and everything else. You can beat him up if something's not working right. And he's excellent. He knows the architect. I've learned more about CPEs from him than anyone. It's fabulous. So it's a treat having him here. He's going to be on the panel, right? The guy with the long hair. Looks like a Linux hacker because he is. Anyhow, here's the challenge area, right? The ISPs turning it up, but the good news is they've got a reason, right? They got the potential energy on both sides. So let's talk a little bit more about that reason. Last year, we talked in theory, hey, it could be cheaper for you if, right? So to put some meat behind that, Cisco commissioned IDC to do a study. You're getting a preview again. The study's not out for a week or two. So don't go run around and you're not going to get this in your handouts. And I had to get rid of the y-axis. But this is based on CapEx. We're vendors. We don't know exactly what your OpEx is, okay? But from a CapEx perspective, from capital expenditures perspective, based upon an ISP of around 5 million users, they've got a lot of different variables. This is the one study. This is it in this case. But anyway, look at the paper when it comes out. An ISP with 5 million users growing at a 10% rate, facing IPv4 exhaustion such that they have to install CGNs, okay, with, I think, 500 sessions per user or something. Anyway, there's variables there. Compare it, and that's all that the ISP does, just the CGNs, no v6. Compared to the ISP that does the same thing, but also has IPv6 deployed. Now, this particular slide showed a 6RD model so that we didn't have to model turning the entire network into native. However, if you're a DOCSIS 3.0 or something like that, and most of your costs are already amortized for going into native, or like KDDI with the fiber to the home, and they've already got native v6, it's the same idea, right? But the point is, because of that massive growth in content that's modeled into this as well, you're not having to, of course, support as much CGN infrastructure. And there's real numbers. In the CGN-only case, it just gets more and more expensive. And in the CGN with IPv6 case, we've actually got numbers where it becomes cheaper over time. So there's a real business case for you. So switching over to wireless, same idea, except for instead of a home router, because you don't have necessarily a home router, mobile interface, okay? So you've got your device that may be IPv6 enabled on the Wi-Fi interface, But the problem spot now becomes whether it's enabled on the mobile interface to the cellular mobile network or not, okay? So that's why that's highlighted so much in the center here. Content, we're in the same boat, right? More than 50%, a couple of years, maybe 90%, et cetera. But let's look at that OS chart. This is from World Internet Cellular something data. There's an asterisk that should be on here, but it's from some spreadsheet we got from our research people for cellular studies and stuff. 2011, 2016, we're already at 75% of operating systems in the smartphone market, and that's thanks to Android and iPhone, right? This is basically your BlackBerries, right? And other stuff that are considered smartphones but don't have V6. So we're about 3/4 of the way there now. But by 2014, we're at 85%. By 2016, we're at 90%. So we're on the top end of that curve. So I'm going to bump that up a little bit, right? ISPs, challenging, right? Now, I called up my good friend Cameron Byrne over at T-Mobile. Some of you might know him. He's really pushing the edge in terms of getting IPv6 deployed. He's got a really nice trial going on in the US. And in his opinion, if you're a GSM, which is 74% of the world, or WCDMA, about 15%, and LTE is like less than 1%, et cetera. But that kind of category of the deployed mobile phones today, V6 was baked into the standards from beginning since the year 2000. There are ancillary pieces, billing and these kinds of things, vendor parity issues, et cetera, all the challenges that we all know about, but the base capability is baked in. You may have to run IPv6 only, and we'll talk about that in a minute, because there's this dual PDP context issue where you end up having, twice the cost in some of your GGSN equipment or whatever to run V4 and V6 side by side. But you can get IPv6 up, and there are Jan Zors will be talking about this more when he talks about mobility in Slovenia. So at least there's proof points that it works, right? It works even better at the WCDMA level, and over time, this is 3 or 4 years from now, the GSM is going down, so your kind of 2G, 3G is going down, being replaced by 3.5 and 4G, which of course, the ability to run IPv6 in that equipment is far more mature. We see in the US, the LTE from Verizon, Andy, thank you, is enabled on their network. All you need, again, is a device with IPv6 enabled by default. Now, you get your Galaxy or your Cisco, Google Nexus. Cisco has a Nexus platform. So the Google Nexus phone. Did you know we had an iPhone too? Anyway, everybody likes our names. Anyhow, the Google Nexus platform, as well as the Galaxy S from Samsung, now have a nice little turn on IPv6 button, right? And that's good. It's been there since December, and it works on the mobile interface, so the drivers are all there, but it's not enabled by default. And again, this is a partnership between the device and the ISP, right? Surely, of course, the OEM, the manufacturer of the device, has some work to do to get that capability there. But it's in direct linkage with the ISP demanding it in their specifications, like Verizon did for LTE, and being strong about it, or by just simply downloading the right APN profiles or whatever the case may be, right? The phone is under control by the ISP, similar to those home routers that are ISP managed, right? That is both a challenge and an opportunity, right? So the opportunity being that once these ISPs who have the basic functionality to get serious and enable the IPv6, they can flip this switch. So again, we've got this situation where a lot of content by the end of this year, a lot of capability in the OSs and applications over the next couple of years, building up this sort of this potential energy on both sides. Now, how do we get these guys? That's a lot of not enabled here, right? So I think we got to provide a better business case, okay? For fixed line, the CGNs weren't in there yet. And we saw with the CapEx survey, you're going to be buying less if you deploy V6 at the same time. It's a pretty strong argument, right? Give us less money, operator, right? But on mobile, they've already got the CGN, right? It's already built in. It's all there. They expect it. They like it. It's kind of, maybe it's a security issue. The CGN's there. So the argument becomes, all right, we can offload your existing CGN, which is good. There's something there. But it's not as good as it needs to be. To get the business case to be as good as it needs to be for those ghost images to fill into green, we got to look at that 15% right there. Okay? This little tiny 15%. In fixed, it doesn't matter because no one is realistically going to give an IPv6 only service. It might be dual stack so that V4 is tunneled or whatever, but the LAN in the home is going to be dual stack for the next 5, 10 years, and that's fine because you've got old stinky stuff in the home that can still run over IPv4 and it's your long tail. That's fine. But on mobile, it's different, right? On mobile, we've got this 15%, and that's what's holding us back from IPv6 only. And IPv6 only is the next business case. The idea that I can deploy a handset with no IPv4 address on it whatsoever. No tunneling, no translating, no nothing. It's just IPv6. It's IPv6 throughout the network. You have a NAT64 on the side for legacy content. And it ends up looking exactly like the Cisco NAT64 demo that you have today, right? It mostly works. There's a few glitches here and there, and it's that darn 15%. So let's look at that. The 15%, again, comes from work that Cameron's doing at T-Mobile. He has gone and produced a spreadsheet, Google Doc, online, and if you're part of the T-Mobile V6 beta, you can access it. And it's got the top 300 free apps. I guess he's cheap. I don't know. The top 300 free apps in the Android store. Okay? So as sort of a proxy of understanding, how much works and doesn't, that's how I get to this 15%, and how he did as well. 85% of the applications work on an IPv6 only network, mobile network, with a Galaxy or a Cisco Nexus or whatever, no IPv4 address on the phone, and performing whatever app you're performing, right? All this stuff just works, whether it's going directly to IPv6 or going through a NAT64. This is the stuff that doesn't. Now, some operators may not care if Skype breaks. Some users actually may care, though. It depends. And certainly, I like my Spotify, right? And then there's a few surprises up here. Google Talk, guys, you're the leaders. But this 15% of brokenness. Now, how many people know brokenness isn't a real English word, but we coined it a couple of years ago. A couple of years ago when we talked about IPv6 brokenness, how many people know what that is? All right? IPv6 brokenness was the #1 thing stopping all those content providers showing up, right? The Googles and whoever else, they turned on IPv6 and they looked at it and they said, this stuff is broken. It's not that good, guys. I can't advertise my quad A's. Forget it, right? And then Tor Anderson over here and said, well, if you fix this piece, you'll gain this percentage. And if you get this piece, well, why don't you go fix Apple here? And then Dan and Andrew, Dan Wing and Andrew Yortachenko, and you'll hear Dan's speech tomorrow, did happy eyeballs. Why do we have a 30-second timeout? Why don't we do this, go to the A record and the quad A or the V4 and the V6 in parallel or with at least a faster timeout between the two and publish an internet draft, and that's in a lot of the browsers today, right? It's in Chrome, it's in Safari, working. Anyway, that's Dan's presentation, right? So we got down and did work as engineers. And 2 years later, you see that Google chart of red, of brokenness, just went whew, and it's noise now. It went from, I'm sorry, I can't tell my business leaders to turn on IPv6 because they're just going to say no, because it's going to cost us too much money in IPv6 brokenness. Now it's in the noise, which is why World Launch, which is why after World Day, we were able to say, you know, we don't need another World Week. We don't need another World Day or a World Week or a World Month. We're just going to turn it on and leave it on forever now, right? So I think we can do it again. Fix the 15%. In the next year or two, go out. You guys know people, right? Go out and talk to these developers. Make it a grassroots. Make it an executive. Make it a condition of your your phone working on your network. Whatever power, whatever levers you have, fix that 15%. And now the mobile guys have the business case to start flipping on the mobile interfaces and enabling their networks. So, to sum up, since last year, we had a great test flight. That was the World IPv6 Day, and it was really fun. We all stayed up late. We had champagne afterwards. We took a saber and broke the top of the champagne bottle off, and it hit Google guy in the eye, and blood went down his face. And we had a lot of fun, and it was really sort of a serendipitous moment when, on the IRC chat, at the end of the 24 hours, it was like, do we really have to turn it off? That was nice. Oh, well. Beep. Oh, you know? And then thankfully, Google kind of accidentally forgot to turn off YouTube. You know, that was pretty cool of them. It's like, but that was really great. And if I had a chart of confidence level in IPv6 in the industry, it just went like, boom, in one day, right? The confidence level went through the roof, which is why we're able to have the World IPv6 launch this year, right? And I certainly know within Cisco, so we're participating as a vendor of a home networking equipment, like I mentioned earlier, but also www.cisco.com. We're going to have our Quad A's announced forever. And had we not done that last year, we never would have been able to do it coming up in June. Just from the internal politics perspective, I think John Woolwine, our chief architect of the V6 external presence, said that even after our CIO, Rebecca Jacoby, said, yes, you can do this, green light, he had to go get 9 different vice presidents of 9 different organizations to sign off on this. You know, like weird places in the company he didn't know exist, and legal stuff, and God knows what else, right? In order to get www.cisco.com to have a Quad A, right? So had we not gone through that, there was no way we would be able to do this now. And so the confidence level went up throughout the industry. I've seen it, and that's makes 2012 very different than 2011 in terms of where we were 1 year ago. So we've prepared a launch, and again, Phil's going to be talking about that. You can direct all the questions to him about what the details are for participation. So, what are the business cases? 3. Full spectrum IPv6, right? When you buy Microsoft Office or what have you, or whatever your game software is, you know, you look on the side of the package and it says, you know, must have this kind of processor, must have this much memory, must have blah, 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 in order to run this piece of software. I wouldn't be surprised to see a content provider, the way they've shown up and the way they talk about the importance of being able to not have to go through the CGN to reach their customers. You know, for best experience when you're Facebooking or whatever, must have a broadband connection of this speed or a 3G or 4G, whatever, wireless connection and a global internet address, right? Whether that be by V4 or V6. But of course, the V6 one's a lot easier to get, right? So full spectrum internet is the one business case. Now, it's a little bit more fuzzy, particularly for the operator, right? It's pretty clear for the content provider. CGN bypass. We've got numbers behind it now and ISPs that are executing upon that strategy based upon that business model. 3 IPv6 only mobile devices. In order to enable that, we've got to fix the applications, right? So those 3 things together, and I think we're actually going to lick this thing and get IPv6 deployed. And there we go. Focus for 2012, join the launch and fix the 15. Join the launch, fix the 15. And we're all working together. And that's really the only way to make this happen. If you've got time for questions, great. Otherwise, go get coffee.